So, Donald Trump's name is literally scaring all the economists of today's time. All the banks, stockholders, and mutual fund investors are biting their nails, wondering what his next move will be, because it could decide everyone's future. Recently, as you know, Trump imposed tariffs all over the world, which he called Liberation Day. Except for Russia, these tariffs were slapped on every country, and he even couldn't keep penguins safe from them. Now, because of this decision, the global stock market crashed. Here's a chart showing how global stocks fell after April 2nd. China's stock market dropped by 15%. Europe's stock market sank by 4.5% on Monday. Taiwan's market dropped almost 10%, and Taiwan, under pressure, even removed all tariffs on U.S. products. So there's been a lot of chaos. Even in the U.S., stocks turned red, like a Mustang speeding downhill. In many articles like Extreme Volatility sends U.S. stocks on a roller coaster ride, as Wall Street is rattled by tariffs, or everywhere. Protests are happening in the US, with people concerned about what's going to happen to their 401k investment, mutual funds, and everything else, since so many Americans invest in these things. So the situation is really tense. Now what happened is that, to counter these tariffs, and give Trump a strong reply, China imposed 34% tariffs on the US, which caused the US stock market to dive even more. A lot of companies are witnessing their stock prices fall, and people are even making this kind of memes, comparing the stock crash to Orange Crash, referencing Trump's infamous look. But this is nothing compared to what's about to come. In the middle of all this chaos, Trump shared a video on his Truth Social platform, where he claimed he wanted to crash the stock market to punish rich US citizens. And this is a massive signal from his side that he's intentionally trying to hurt global investors and regular US citizens. I would say this is a totally senseless move. I don't know who's advising him on these decisions, but thinking that only rich people invest in the US stock market shows Trump's very poor understanding of the US economy. Now even a lot of his MAGA supporters are turning against him. And Trump's been acting weird. After sharing that video about intentionally crashing the stock market, the next day he said, "I don't want to crash the stock market, but sometimes you have to take medicine." Now, I want to show you a short clip of the US's 40th president, Ronald Reagan, giving a speech on tariff. Even the Chinese embassy in the US shared it. Please have a look.
You see, at first, when someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. What eventually occurs is, first, homegrown industries start relying on government protection in the form of high tariffs. They stop competing and stop making the innovative management and technological changes they need to succeed in world markets. And then, while all this is going on, something even worse occurs. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. The result is more and more tariffs, higher and higher trade barriers, and less competition. So soon, because of the prices made artificially high by tariffs that subsidize inefficiency and poor management, people stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. The memory of all this occurring back in the 30s made me determined when I came to Washington to spare the American people the protectionist legislation that destroys prosperity. Now, it hasn't always been easy. There are those in the Congress, just as there were back in the 30s, who want to go for the quick political advantage, who risk America's prosperity for the sake of a short-term appeal to some special interest group.
So, from Ronald Reagan's speech, I hope you pretty much understand that tariffs are only good in the short term, but in the long term, they just cause destruction. But who's going to tell this to Trump? After China imposed their tariff, Trump announced on social media that if China doesn't remove their tariffs, then on April 9th, they'll face an additional 50% tariff from the US side. Can you imagine that? If Trump really does this, considering the existing tariffs, then there will be a whopping 104% tariff on all Chinese products coming to the US. And this would be suicidal for the US, because things don't work that way. Imposing that much of a tariff on China will cause inflation to skyrocket in the US. Suddenly, people will feel the heat. All the items imported from China will get way more expensive. For example, iPhone. Even before the announcement of the additional 50% tariff, reports were coming out that soon the basic iPhone model would cost up to $900, and the Pro and Pro Max models would start at $2,000. If the 50% tariff is implemented, imagine how much an iPhone will cost. The basic iPhone could hit $1,500, and the Pro or Pro Max models might cost you your kidney. Similarly, Tesla cars will get more expensive, and all electronics prices will double. Even materials needed for construction will get way more expensive, squeezing the average consumer's budget. So, things are about to get worse for US citizens. Extreme protests could happen in the US, and honestly, Trump is taking all of this too lightly. There are already possibilities, 11 like attacks on the US. And on top of that, this tariff battle is insane. Also, China controls around 70% of the global supply chain for rare earth metals. So if additional tariffs are imposed on China, it could be the final nail in the coffin for the US. This stock market crash is nothing compared to what's coming. This month is going to be a real roller coaster for many. Right now, it's just China retaliating. Can you imagine what will happen when the European Union and other nations retaliate? Then all nations will face something worse than the Great Depression. So the upcoming time looks really scary and tough for every nation. Also, JP Morgan just raised the risk of a recession to 60%, up from 40%. So what do you think about this situation? Do you think the Great Depression is about to happen again, or is all this just rumors? Thanks for watching the video, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.